Hi, everyone. I'm going to let Brennan Cox start us off with introductions. Brendan, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, have we officially started, or are we waiting for any other more people? I think let's just give it. It's not yet 5 o'clock, so let's just wait for more people to just kind of roll in here.
Okay.
I think we had 50 some odd people attend, and we only have really kind of 20 attendees right now. So let's just give it a few minutes. Thanks for those who are here already. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the community workshop number 2. We're just letting a few people join in here. The attendee list is still going up, so we're just giving a few people more time to log in and get comfortable. We'll be starting very soon. All right, we are currently at 29 people. Let's see if we can get the number to 30 and then we'll start. Okay, we are now at above 30 people. I think it would be a great time to start. We will we'll do some introductions here. My name is Brennan Cox. I'm a partner at Groundworks Office, and while not an Albany resident, I would like to consider myself one. Have gone to many of the Albany Parks. Really consider them part of my neighborhood. So really happy to be doing this. I'm accompanied by our team. David, why don't you introduce yourself, and everybody on our team, why don't you turn your cameras on and introduce yourself as you'll be.
Hi, I'm Dave Koo. I'll be a facilitator today as well as a presenter. I'm leading this effort on behalf of Groundworks Office and really excited to be part of this process. We've started back in April and now we're here in June. So excited to continue this process.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ramon Solis. I'm a landscape designer with the Groundworks Office, and I'll also be one of the facilitators in one of the breakout rooms that we'll be joining in later today.
Chris, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Christopher. I'm a landscape designer also with Groundworks. I am the resident big kid in the office who tests out the playground equipment, and I'm here to help out. I hope you'll enjoy the presentation, and I think we'll make some magic soon.
Ming, you're up. Oh, you're on mute, Ming.
Hi everyone, I'm Ming from Groundworks Office. I'm a designer here, and I'm happy to see people are here to do contribution to the community in Albany. Let's just enjoy the discussion.
Last but not least, Lucky.
Hi everybody, I'm Lucky and I'll be helping out with today's workshop. I've been living in Albany for 2 years and been to some of the parks, but not all of them. And I hope today we can have some great outcomes of this workshop.
Great, thanks. Okay, well, Dave mentioned quickly that we have started and we've been working on this, and we have 4 phases that we've gone through. We are now just starting our workshop phase. This is our first community workshop. We had a public meeting at the end of our learn phase in mid-May. But I think what would be best is to have Dave Koo from my office. He's going to give a presentation of our work up to date, but also show you a little bit as we move forward. What will we do? What we have been doing and what we are going to be doing, and what the intent and what we hope to get out of this first community workshop with you all. So Dave, take it away.
Great, everyone, thanks for coming. Just a quick poll of today, just to start us off. We were curious where everyone was from, everyone who's on this call. There are kind of broke up Albany into 4 quadrants: northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest. If you could all pick which quadrant you belong in, and if you're not a resident, that's fine. You can just click not a resident. Great. Awesome. Lots of Northwest Albanians. Okay. Few more. 91%. There are 3 participants who haven't, but I guess I can release the results now. Last call. Give it up to a minute. Okay, well, I don't know if you guys can see this, but great that it's fairly evenly distributed. Nice to have workshop participants from various parts of Albany. I recognize that there's less folks from Southwest Albany just because of that's mainly University Village property, hence mainly residents there. A few out-of-towners, which is great. I mean, we care about regional users as well. So I'm happy to have all of you. I wanted to just mention today's Oops, sorry. Oh, there we go. Just today's exercise, we're doing a master plan presentation, roughly 30 minutes. At the end of that, we'll take questions. Then we'll go into our breakout portion of today's workshop. There is a separate Zoom room for that, just because there are different functions for Zoom. We will guide you towards that, so no worries now. But essentially in the breakout rooms, Ramon, myself, and Brennan, we will get in a smaller group and be able to chat and talk with all of you participants separately and do some mapping exercise in real time, trying to improve, expand, and connect to Albany. Once we've finished that portion, we're all going to come back together and talk about what we've learned and what we want to do. I could also mention the workshop from home option for folks who need to get the rest of their Sunday back. Again, so glad that everyone could spend today with us. Today's agenda, we're just going to have a quick 45-minute presentation about the master plan scope and schedule, what we've learned so far, some of the outreach methods we've done so far, but obviously we would love to hear more. We want to talk about the stakeholders and stewards we've already engaged with and take questions about the master plan itself. Then again, as I mentioned, there's a separate breakout room Zoom that I'll help guide everyone towards. And tonight's workshop exercise is to envision the system. And that should take roughly an hour with questions and comments. Great, so I just wanted to highlight that the master plan process itself is only mentioning city property. So these are all of the parks and open spaces owned by the city alone, right? So this doesn't include East Shore State Park, which is owned by East Bay Regional Park, UC Village or University Village, that is owned by the University of California. And then all of the Albany Unified School Districts, that is a separate entity that controls their own parks and open space systems. Just wanted to highlight that here. And for folks who don't know what a master plan is, it's essentially a strategic document that allows the city to plan for its future. This master plan will try to identify policies, programs, and projects that will help guide the city in making those investments, which is critical for you residents, for you regional users, and for various stakeholders to provide your input into that selection, that list of policies, programs, and projects. There are 4 phases to this master plan. We've just concluded Learn, which really just got us familiar with the Albany Park system. Now we're workshopping from what we've learned to build on those ideas, to build out that list of policies, programs, and projects. In August to September, we're going to evaluate that list and understand how we could best prioritize projects or find funding sources. And then finally, implement is our last phase of the master plan, which will be strategizing how to implement the master plan. Some key dates. This is indeed workshop number 1. Just wanted to clarify that. I think there was an advertisement for workshop number 2, which might have confused Brennan, but this is workshop number 1. Workshop number 2 is in July at 7 p.m. during the Parks and Recreation Open Space Commission meeting. That's a Thursday night. And then we're trying to find opportunities for mini workshops. This might happen outdoors very casually. We'll advertise those most definitely. So if you're on our e-notification or on our mailing list or following us on Instagram, you'll get those notifications. And then tentatively, workshop number 3, I think we're still working out the kinks, but Saturday, August 14th, outdoors and hopefully in person at Memorial Park. Again, you'll get an event for that. And then the final milestones of this project will help the city of Albany get Prop 68 grant funding. This is like a statewide park funding program. We'll be helping with the PROS Commission, that's Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Commission, build out the work plan for the implementation phase of the master plan. And then finally, we'll be seeking city council approval. So again, we're in workshop, and this is between June and July. We're mostly working with residents, regional users, stakeholders to find opportunities for this master plan projects. I think it's good for us to just take a look back of what we've learned from the learn phase, which happened between April and May. We did a lot of demographic analysis, looking at the parks in the context of the neighborhoods. We looked at the age distribution across the city. You know, there's a fair amount of population growth even today. Looking at the racial makeup, understanding people with disabilities that might have challenges in the park system. This is the existing parks and open spaces today. We have 43 acres of active open space, 91 of passive, 134 roughly of open spaces in total. And that includes both the University Village, Albany Unified School District parklands, and East Bay Regional Park State, the East Shore State Park as well. These are the various types of recreational facilities, and it's critical for any park system to have enough parklands per set number of residents. Usually the ratio is for 1,000 Albany residents, so there's roughly 2.27 acres per 1,000 Albany residents. There's this enormous goal of providing 3 acres per 1,000 Albany residents. This was stipulated in the 2035 general plan. That would mean an additional 18 acres of active recreational lands. This is a really big goal, but I think it's one that we could strive to. And just reflecting on what was instituted in the previous master plan, there are those 3 major renovations to the parks: Ocean View Park, Jewel Terrace Park, and Memorial Park. And hopefully many of you recognize the new improvements that have been implemented over time. The 2035 general plan also mentions various projects that might be the next phase of improvements, adding the Ohlone Greenways, adding more programming there. The idea of making the Key Route median this nice walking path. Peggy Thompson Pierce Street Park, which is the newest park to the Albany Parks and Open Space System, adding and finalizing the improvements there. And then the continual additions to Cornices Creek, Cerrito Creek, and finalizing the Albany Hill improvements. The general plan also mentions opportunities to expand the park system through non-traditional means, parklets, pocket parks, and even perhaps privately owned public spaces. The general plan also has these 6 goals for the park system: open space protection, parkland expansion and improvements, park management and maintenance, recreational programming, joint use and collaboration, trails and pathways. Open space is about protecting, the open spaces we have today. Parkland expansion improvement, which is something we will talk about in today's exercise, about how to expand the park system and improve it. We think that management and maintenance is really critical for any park system. So making sure that that is a service that is being completed. Providing new types of recreational programming or recreational programming that fits the needs of today's Albany residents. And joint use and collaboration is working with various agencies to build out the park system, manage the park systems, and then trails and pathways, which is creating an integrated network. So my question to everyone on this call is to get an idea of what goal from the Albany General Plan do you think is most important? And we're going to ask you to select two. If I know you, oh, sorry, something is. Can everyone see the goals? Brennan, can I have a thumbs up? Yeah, okay. So you have the list here. Pick two goals that you think are the most important to the Albany Parks and Open Space system. Great, the votes are coming in. And we're asking you to pick two. I know you could pick all six, but just two would be great. Awesome. Okay, about 30 participants have voted, 31. Okay. Somebody changed their mind. 34 of 37 have voted. Ooh, lots of change of hearts maybe? No, okay. 30, okay, I'm gonna end the poll here. And it looks like park management and maintenance is the winner. And then the next one is open space protection. Great. Awesome. Well, we're hoping that we get that feedback within the park master plan. In terms of other policy documents that we found relevant, these are some of the citywide plans that are instituted across the city. So we have the Albany Hill Creekside Master Plan, the Albany Neck and Bulb Transition Study, the Voices Division, the vision for the Albany waterfront. And then we have the Climate Action Plan. I've mentioned the Parks and Recreation Open Space element from the general plan. The land use element is also relevant. The Albany Active Transportation Plan, we think is relevant for connecting the various parks. And then the idea of instituting public arts to the master plan. Great. In addition to a policy review, we did a park-wide inventory. This is an itinerary sketch of us trying to connect bike and walk to these various parks. There are obvious gaps in the system. This was prior to me understanding really how one could get from Cornelius Creek, for instance, to Ocean View Park. There was having to cut back. So doing this allowed us to look at all of the parks and look at all of the site amenities that are provided. We also looked at the recreational functions of each park and what recreational programming is provided. And we also got to talk to a handful of users. At Jewel Terrace Park, we have Daniel and Casa. We ran into Albert on the Ohlone Greenway, who's working out. Sarah, who was at the Tot Lot, who really valued the Tot Lot for people who have nanny shares or have childcare needs. And then Oliver at Peggy Thompson Pierce Street Park, whose grandson just ran around in nature rather than playing on the playground. We also did a green rubric for each of the parks. There were 5 themes that we looked at: environmental beautification, recreational programming, equipment and facilities, looking at what types of art and cultural and historical resources were provided at each park, and just overall connectivity and accessibility. Here are the grades. Again, this was very surface level. We haven't at this point in the process, got to talk with stakeholders or have deeper conversations. So this was just us out on our bike and sidewalks. So from all of that policy review, from looking at these various parks, we kind of created this list of, the policies, programs, and projects. However, we know there's a huge piece missing. It's everyone on this call. At this point, we haven't even talked to the stakeholders. So this was just an initial list. So that's why you're all here today, to help us refine this list. And
David, I think, David, I just go back one slide. I'll just kind of cue on that a little bit. And
yeah.
The intent of the community meeting is to obviously hear from you, but we're also going to be, over this process is to prioritize what are the important areas within the city of Albany that we should be focusing on. This is only an initial list. And as well, I think we're going to talk about this a little bit in the breakout rooms, but and it was a question asked in the chat, and it's a little bit of this, but as to what the scope of work is, on one sense, we really want the scope to be as broad as we can. And I think there is some of that in how we're thinking about this and what we're presenting about this as well. But on the other hand of that is that we do want to have actionable things that we know we can accomplish, and as we partner with the PROS Commission, the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space folks, that we can begin to kind of have things on a to-do list. I think that some of those can stray outside of that, but that we do know that we're going to have a little bit tougher time accomplishing those projects because they require action items that are beyond the influence of the city of Albany. For instance, UC Village, to name one, I guess. But there you go. Or the 80 freeway. That was the other one.
Great. Right. So there are these various ways that we're trying to get comments from residents, stakeholders, regional users. This is one of them. We're doing a Zoom workshop. Hopefully you're seeing flyers out. We're also going to do mailers very soon to get the community survey out. We have a project website. If you haven't seen it yet, you could follow us on the various social media platforms. There's still this potential of doing an outdoor public gallery. When we were prepping for the master plan, we were unsure of what the COVID protocols were going to be. This was one way that we thought could be a safe way for folks to still meet in person. We're excited to host neighborhood and stakeholder roundtables. If you're a neighborhood leader or a neighborhood group, we would love to be in contact with you. And we're already doing our socially distanced park walk and talks with stewards and stakeholders. These are all the groups that we've reached out to and walked the parks in person. We got to play pickleball with the East Bay Pickleball Association. We got to walk the bulb with Susan Moffett. We had the meeting of the minds with the Friends of Five Creeks. We reached out to ALDOG, and we're tentatively scheduling a bike ride with the Albany Rollers and Strollers to see what their ideas for the park system and the park network could be. At this time, we would love to take questions from you, the audience, and if you could raise your hand or ask in the chat, we would love to answer any questions. I do want to say that we shouldn't talk about park improvements at the moment. We want to hold that discussion for the breakout session. So please keep it to the process itself. Yeah. And I see one raised hand. Philip, you're on. I think you're muted, Philip.
There we go. Can you go back to slide 21? I have a process question.
Yeah.
And the question is, you're going to these parks and accounting for uses at the parks and meeting people. How do you account for a group that doesn't have facilities or use at a park that are trying to get uses at a park?
That's a great question. We would, I think there are various avenues for doing that. Just reaching out to us and asking if, a specific program could be included in the master plan would be that way. Sorry to flip through all these, but, I think today is a appropriate venue for that, to hear what you think could be an addition to the park system, by messaging us or emailing us. That's another way of doing that.
Yeah, I'll just kind of piggyback on that, Philip. Like, that's, I think, a really good point to bring up in the breakout rooms. If you are a user that doesn't have a place to go, or a program that that's not represented in the parks, we want to hear from those people. That's the intent of this workshop. That's the intent of this workshop. That's the intent of the next workshop. That's the intent of this master plan, is to hear from those that aren't being served by the parks, and how we can set up that structure so that we can begin to plan for those. Yeah. I saw another hand raised, but maybe not. There were 2 questions asked in the chat, and I've addressed those, but we can talk about those in the breakout rooms.
Okay, Philip?
Yeah, I had a follow-up question, and this has to do with the Albany Village. With what do they have now? 1,600 full-time students there, young adults, and not accounting for their impacts to the Albany Parks and system and open space system, I think is an error. That number can have a big impact on our facilities in the city of Albany. I know that there's open space and playgrounds on the UC Village property, but the older people there, the 20s and 30s, are coming over to the Albany Parks and using those facilities. So I'm just wondering, is there a way to account for that impact?
Just to answer your question, Philip, I believe the population of Albany to the ratio of parklands is included. So we are accounting the population of the Albany residents in its entirety. And I also believe that the Albany residents also use UC Village, are allowed to use UC Village properties for Little League, I believe is one big programming function. But it's a great point. I mean, there needs to be an equitable way of using parks and open spaces.
It looks like Nick Peterson is wanting to raise his hand, but he doesn't have a way of doing it. Nick, you were able to ask a chat. Do you want to ask that again? I know you asked about some of the undeveloped locations along Cordonisus Creek. And like I said, we can address, and we'll focus in a little bit more on that in the breakout rooms. And it looks like Susan Moffat, you're asking, is the chat disabled? I believe the chat is enabled if you have a question to ask. Is that true? Looks like other people are chatting, Susan, so I believe the chat function is available.
I see Susan Moffat's question here. It's important to include the planned major expansion of University Village, not just current population. And I think that's a great point. Yeah. I'm sorry, Susan. I think that's a great topic that we should most definitely address. Great. Thank you for that feedback.
Oh, we have, you're good. Nice. Okay.
Any more questions?
Nick Peterson's question is, will improved green infrastructure, street trees especially, be part of this effort? I guess no. that is within the public right of way. And primarily this has been addressed as well as the scope of the work. I think we're generally trying to stay within what is the purview of the Parks and Recreation and Open Space Commission. And that is land that is owned by the city of Albany. That said, we are very interested in some places, Key Route Boulevard, the I-80 freeway underpasses, the creeks, as opportunities to expand the network. We are looking at those in this master plan. But when it comes down to specific streets and street trees, that's probably not within the purview of this planning exercise.
Though we also think that that is an important aspect to the master plan, there are, given the general plan has these various non-traditional parks, there could be a parklet or a mini park somehow included into the master plan system or park system. So I think it's a worthy discussion if that is indeed part of the park system. Bart has asked to talk, so I'm going to let him talk here. Bart, you are muted though.
I just unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I did make a little comment in the chat, but I think maybe I'll bring it up here. Anyway, one of the things I'm concerned about in the long term is the extent to which you'll be thinking about the impacts of global warming on development, because my understanding is that as the environment becomes warmer, the need for open space and an undeveloped open space is going to become more critical. So we need to think beyond the current availability of space, and we need to think about that issue specifically. Otherwise, it's going to get awfully hot here.
I think yes, point noted, and we couldn't agree more. I think one of the items that we do hope to be at the end of this process is a fuller picture of how our parks can adapt to climate change. But that we also, I think, stray a little bit outside of the bounds of what a master plan is in looking at the things that serve the residents, but also think of places that are critical to the environment. And that is something we are definitely interested in progressing in the master plan.
Thank you.
Dave, do you want to go through? There's some other questions here from, it looks like Brian Martin asked a question regarding how the housing along San Pablo will factor in the regional pressure on outdoor space and recreation at parks. Yes, Brian, we are factoring in growth of the city. One of the things that we have not yet done, but I think that is valuable to do, is a park walking map. Is where are the parks in the city now, but also and as a function of density of where people are living and where they're going to be living, and how we inevitably will need more parks to serve those people. We also have a uniquely interesting situation with the city of Albany in that we do have a very regional park in the Bulb that serves a lot of people beyond the city of Albany, and how we factor that in into this process is important as well. I hope I've answered your question there, but yes, we are looking ahead at where people are going to be moving, and that we do need to increase the number of parks to serve those people. A follow-up to Nick's question is, will we be recommending planting and landscaping in parks? I would say we have not yet thought about this, but I think that this is easily something that can be included in the parks, because I think that piggybacks on alongside of the global warming and climate change, is that we need to provide more locations for flora and fauna to survive and to do well. And so I think that that is something that we may address in this plan. Nick Peterson asked another question. He would like to know how the master plan specifically addresses green infrastructure goals of climate action and adaptation plan. I will not pretend to have read, and Dave, this is where you might want to take that question if you have looked at the city's climate action plan. I would assume that some of that information is in there. But I think that when it comes to parks and park spaces, that we would most certainly have a section regarding green infrastructure goals for the parks. I think that that's would be a very valuable part of this master plan.
And most certainly we need the advocates of that plan to kind of champion some specific policies for the park system. I know urban forestry is one of them. Doing native and drought tolerant planting is another huge aspect, and we're obviously proponents of that. I believe that the master plan might not, might say plant native forest here, but it might provide a palette of native forest trees or some way of including the beautification of these park systems that are less impactful in terms of carbon. There's one aspect that was kind of very technical to me was SB 1383, which is the statewide composting and mulching mandate that the state has, that cities have to put X amount of their compost and their mulch in the city itself, or somehow deal with it, and trying to divert all of that landfill waste material from the landfills because of methane emissions. So we're going to have to be kind of trying to figure out how to best use compost and mulching for the park system. So there's a lot of technical questions that the master plan might not address directly, but most certainly will address.
Okay, moving along here. Deborah Bernhardt asked, how often is the master plan done? I believe the last one was completed in 2004. So we're on a 15+ year cycle. And then Susan Moffat asked a question regarding Golden Gate Fields. I will punt on that one. I mean, this is obviously, I think in the long range, a very worthy thing to look at. But I don't know if that is really within the purview of this master plan right now. I think that could be very complicated, as you well know.
I think, if that land did become available within the framework of this master plan, most certainly that should be something to discuss. But given that the current framework is just existing Albany Park property, I think we're trying to keep it there. I don't know if the master plan should be, addressing future available land, even though, that piece of property, is a sizable portion that could provide some park functioning.
But your comments are, I think, on point for sure. Michaela Bernhardt, what are your thoughts on balancing the growth of the city in relationship to the goal of 3 acres per 1,000 residents, which means new park space? It's complicated for certain. Being a small municipality, there's not much land. And so I think we have to be very judicious with how we look into the future and whether or not that metric is something that can be reached. Also, let's see. That was asked twice. And then Amy Smollins asks, the city emissions are 50% plus due to motor vehicles, and the CAAP requires reducing car usage. So improvement and expansion of pathways and trails would support the CAAP. Amy, we will be specifically addressing this in the breakout sessions I think we have some very fun things to look at there, but and I will, well, actually that's in Dave's presentation to follow.
Yeah.
Last two here, and then I think we should move on. Brian, what's the difference between active and passive public land in your totals? Active is a soccer field or sports recreation in general, and passive is in the sense more park-like, strolling, less structured open space activities, bird watching, strolling, picnicking.
Albany Hill would be an example of a passive recreational space, and an active would be something like Memorial Park or Ocean View Park, where there's recreational courts.
And
it's
Nick, last question by Nick Peterson. Is there any recommendation to acquire more land on Albany Hill? We have not made that recommendation because we are just starting this process. But if there is general sentiment among the citizenry, I think that's, we are going to be at the end going to be giving recommendations for how to move the Parks Department forward. If that is a viable opportunity, I think that's something that should be included, but I think it has to fall under that. Is that viable? All right, Dave, why don't you continue and explain the rest of the process in your presentation of what we hope to accomplish here for community workshop number 1.
Great. So now we're transitioning away from the presentation, and we will begin to do a workshop exercise. And we have 3 goals for the workshop exercise. We want to figure out what you think the best ways are to expand, improve, and connect the Albany Park system. I'm going to bring this up because we are now showing you where we are in the agenda, where we'll be transitioning to the workshop exercise fairly soon, just to provide some just background of why we think this exercise is important. When we talk about these park systems, we generally talk about the parks as individual places. We think that there's enormous opportunity to talk about the park system as all of the parks as a park system. And you may be asking, what would an integrated and connected park and open space system look like? There's a lot of examples across the country. I think the best one is probably the Emerald Necklace in Boston, Massachusetts. The varied places for humans and habitat, for passive recreation, active recreation. I think it just provides us with a great model. And that system was idealized by Frederick Law Olmsted, who wanted to connect Boston Common to Back Bay, to Jamaica, I believe Jamaica Pond, and then to the Arnold Arboretum. I think by doing this, we get a more comprehensive and more nuanced look at the park system. These are other park systems that we looked at. There's St. Paul, Minnesota, there's Atlanta Beltway. And then there's like the Davis Loop, right? This bike and ped network that connects to these individual parks. And we think that the SF Bay Trail is also a great example of a park system. So that's our first exercise. We want to use the Albany Active Transportation Network as a framework of how to connect these various parks together. And you might be wondering what that looks like. Well, we think that there's opportunities to kind of leverage resources and address these various problems with various solutions. So, we could invest in a Safe Routes to School program on the Key Route Boulevard that connects to Albany High and to El Cerrito. We could strengthen connections to the waterfront. We could provide safer active transportation networks. We certainly think that restoration and managing the creeks are very important for this plan, especially since Albany is bordered by 2 creeks. Climate change is going to be an issue, and adapting to that will require, investments in urban forestry. There's non-traditional means to provide park spaces, for instance, parklets, and the pollinator support system through Pollinator Bike Boulevard could be another mechanism of enhancing our park system. This is just a series of images to counter what we see in Boston. I think there's just a lot here in terms of great public and park open spaces. And we really think that that should be a goal for this master plan.
So to say this in a slightly different way is that this is the part of the master plan that we hope to be aspirational in a sense. This is the longward looking trajectory of what Albany is in the next 15 years, or when the next time they get around to doing a master plan again. But what can we hope for in the future? And why are we doing this? I think it's because it's always beneficial to kind of project forward. We understand there are immediate needs in the city of Albany, and there are specific issues each of you have with relation to the parks as they sit currently today. And we do want to address those as well in the Parks Master Plan. But before we get into talking about trash cans or funding or all that sort of thing, I think that the idea is for this first workshop is to step back and really think aspirationally about where and how the city will look in 15 or 20 years with regards to its park network.
And how we want those comments generated when we're in our individual breakout rooms, it would be on a map. So this is one quick one that I did, realizing when we were doing the bike and site walking tours of all these parks, of how we can actually connect all these various parks into this cohesive network. We also want to expand and improve the Albany Park system. So we're asking for your feedback on this as well. Just to talk about expansion versus improvements. Generally, expanding the park system has more capital costs. Part of the reason why expanding the park system incurs more costs is like the more collaborations with various government agencies. Whereas improve, we're mainly talking about the parks that are owned by the city, and the improvements are under the jurisdiction of the city of Albany. There's more land use permitting, there's land purchasing, there's environmental reviews, other jurisdictional reviews. Whereas improvements improvements should in the park system really focus on existing park spaces. So there's already an entitlement of existing land uses. Expanding the park system might require more infrastructure, more upgrades, whereas the current improvements to the park system would just require upgrades. Expanding the park system also means new park maintenance, whereas improve will also include new maintenance, but for already existing parks maintenance regimes. So based on our conversations with stakeholders and doing our policy reviews, these are some of the examples of how the park system could be expanded. There's discussion of wanting to facilitate more arts programming at the bulb. There's this idea of providing underpass park under Caltrans, on Caltrans land. There's already talk of expanding the Cornices Creek trail segment from 8th Street to San Pablo. And then there's this idea of putting a pathway on Key Route. Now, these are existing spaces within Albany, but they're not necessarily entitled for park uses. For improve, it's more discussion of adding additional programming. So for park, there might be an opportunity to add more pickleball or putting basketball courts, perhaps a play field at Pierce Street Park. The Ohlone Greenway being one of the best utilized parks in the Albany Park system might lend itself for more recreation, perhaps improvements to the landscape, adding basketball courts to Memorial Park or pickleball at Ocean View. These are the sorts of improvements that we want from you folks today. So with that, we're going to transition this presentation to the breakout rooms. For folks who have to get away and get their Sunday completed, we're offering workshop from home. If you follow this link here, you'll be able to provide the same mapping comments that we will be doing in the breakout sessions at your leisure. There are 3 maps and we want you to download them or print them. You could do computer markups, you could doodle on them, write notes, essays. We just really want your thoughts on the park system. If you don't have a printer, if you can't do markups, you can leave us a phone message here and we want to get your ideas regardless. So please let us know. For everyone else, we'll put the, we have to transition this Zoom call to the breakout room Zoom. I know it's tedious, but we will put that in the chat shortly. Once you get into that link, why don't you take a break and grab a drink or get some snacks and join us in the breakout rooms. I'll leave this up here for the minute. You could also get the link on the Eventbrite page. We have it under breakout rooms. So click in that URL and then we'll have more intimate conversations and face-to-face interaction, hopefully.
Dave, just to make, so everyone is to go to the next Zoom call. And the reason we did that is because we couldn't do some of our features on this Zoom call. This Zoom link is on the Eventbrite, correct? And once we get everybody into that Zoom is when we'll break everybody up into specific breakout rooms, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Great. All right. So everybody, we're sending this link now. We would like everyone to go to the next Zoom call. Sorry for this. And we will join you all there after a short break. What are we going to say, Dave? 10 minutes or 5? Oh. Back. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
5 to 10 minutes.
Yes. So
yeah.
we'll say 10. And like I said, the next Zoom link is in the chat. I think you can probably go ahead and click on that. And if you have any questions, I'll stay here just in case anybody has any problems. Dave, are you going to the other Zoom?
Yeah, I'll go. You should go too, I guess.
Well, we got 10 minutes, so.
Okay.
There are still a couple of people here in this Zoom webinar. Make sure that you go back to the Eventbrite page and click on the link for the breakout rooms. It's just below the presentation link. Hello, everybody. We still have 5 attendees in this Zoom. We are trying to move to the next Zoom for our breakout panels. I need everybody to leave this Zoom and proceed to the next link that was provided on the Eventbrite. Hello, everybody. You can either click on the link in the chat for the next Zoom link for our breakout session, or you can return back to the Eventbrite page and follow the second link there. Sorry for the inconvenience. We still have a few more people left in this Zoom. We're trying to move everybody to the next Zoom link for our breakout rooms. There was a link in the chat that you could click on, or you could go back to the Eventbrite page. Hi, Nick. Yes, we need to go to the second link. The link was just added to the chat. The next, we're going to that Zoom to better facilitate breakout sessions and discussion.